Hey, welcome back to Dealer Confidential. It's great to have you back. This is where we pull the curtain back on dealership transactions. And we got a great show today. I'm really excited about it. It's a show about you, not us, you, and what's on your mind. So, what are we going to talk about, Greg?
You know how normally I have a question for you? Well, today I've got lots of questions for us. A lot,
No.
a whole lot. It's going to take up this show plus more maybe, but
Okay.
we've got a lot of questions from our dealers, both buy side and sell side, and we're
Good.
going to try to address as many of them as possible. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about upcoming shows later on
Okay.
and about logging into our website and just really becoming a part of the show. So today's
Yeah.
going to be a good
Yeah.
show, answering
I'm
a lot of
excited.
questions that you guys have all sent in, guys and gals have all sent in. And let's start off right from the very beginning. Let's do it, Al.
Okay. I'm ready. I hope.
Believe it or not, one of the biggest, most difficult questions to answer is, how do I determine what the multiple is of my store and, more importantly, of my brand? And I explain to dealers, you do too, that there are probably 5 or 6 different formulas to get to that point. So what do you say we start addressing some of those formulas and how we get to they call it the real multiple of my franchise and my store? Because they're two different things. The franchise is one thing and the store is another. So
Yeah,
let's
we've
start there.
we've talked about this subject on previous podcasts, and it is the biggest negotiated item in the whole deal is the goodwill or the multiple behind the goodwill. And there are pricing guidelines, them, Greg, the Hague, the Kerrigans, the DSMAs. They 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 create a range of multiple, but you really do yourself a disservice when you say, okay, it's 3 to 4, so it must be 3.5. I mean, every deal is unique. And there's so many different factors that go into that multiple. And on top of that, there's only one price for the store anyway, the price that the buyer is willing to make and the seller is willing to accept. So what we do is we look at all of those factors, the facility, the team, the social media report card, the performance and cash flow of the operation. There's so many things that influence the multiple, and there's no such thing as an average business. There's no such thing. The average is a bunch of businesses divided by the number that you're looking at, right?
Right, right.
So I would say if you really want to know what your multiple is, give us a call. We'll do a cash flow analysis. We'll take a look at what your multiple is and what we think the market value of your store is. And of course, there's other elements, not just the multiple. There's the parts and the FFE and the real estate. But it's really it's a hard question to answer because the answer is it depends.
Yeah, and all week I've been dealing with a independent who is trying to purchase a OEM, and it was an interesting situation. I'll just bring this up for a second because it's right along this question. The OEM is a boutique OEM. I can't mention names, but I'll mention that it's a boutique. And the dealer in an excellent area on the Jersey Shore, very, very high net worth area. 99% of his business is done with highline luxury used cars or pre-owns. And he was trying to come up with a multiple for the OEM when the reality of it is that there is multiples for this OEM. I mean, it's a recognized OEM. It's for real, but
Yeah.
there's no real factor to the, like you just said before, to the location, the seasonality, to all those things that we have to take into effect and say, okay, this is what your franchise is worth. A lot of times we have to throw out the multiple concept because there's no multiple for doing a tremendous business in used cars or pre-owned, whether they're highline or trucks or whatever. There's no real multiple for that. That's why you got to look at those financials. Episode 2, we talked about how important those financials were. And if they're in order, that's where you're going to get your multiple from primarily. Not necessarily the brand, not necessarily the OEM, and not necessarily Hague or any of these other companies that put these multiples on. You're unique. when you go to the Hague report and they give you a multiple for Toyota or whatever, you're not unique. They're not looking at your property and your franchise and your spreadsheets and your financial statements. They're not doing that. That's
Yeah.
what we do, and that's how we come up with our, lack of a better word, multiples. They're Greg and Hal's multiple, and that's for your franchise, where it is, what it does, and what the future looks for you.
Yeah. Yep. As we've said before, using Ford or let's using BMW, depending on where that store is, like Ford in California, all other things being equal, is a lot less valuable than Ford in Texas. And BMW in California is a lot more than BMW in Texas, right? Because of the luxury segmentation that's in California and the Ford segmentation that's in Texas segmentation. So
Right.
just lots of things to think about
Yeah.
when you talk about multiple.
Now, do you think that, again, going back to that multiple concept of blue sky, that infamous two words, do you think it's softening? What's happening? I mean, obviously we have seasonality kicking in. We have 2026 kicking in. We have tariffs kicking in. We got a lot of stuff going on in 2026. How is that going to affect our blue sky for our clients?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's back to it's an individual thing. Top performing stores, successful stores are still bringing very good money and very strong multiples. We're up tremendously than over pre-COVID. Now we're down from the peak, okay, where there's no cars and everybody's making $7,000-8,000 over sticker, etc. But I think we're up about 7% in the latest Hague report year over year, and way up double digit up from 2019 pre-COVID. But I would say, again, tough answer, depends, but it's it's still a very strong market. There's many more buyers than sellers, which underpins strong demand, even in light of the financials. There's just a lot more buyers than sellers. And at the same time, I'm finding buyers being more selective. So there's more of them, but the ones that are really serious are picky, right? And they're trying, as they always do, as you are familiar with, trying to get a good value for their money.
Right. And that is really the bottom line. What the seller wants to sell and what the buyer wants to buy. But I have to add a couple of things to this that are frustrating. This past week for me, it's just been crazy. So I'll just add a few more details. We're seeing more and more independents trying to come into the market of the OEM market. Hal and I are. And that's fine. What happened during COVID, and Hal mentioned after COVID, the independents did very, very well. They're cash rich. They are looking for OEMs because they're looking for banks. They're looking for ways to solidify their business, current
Yeah.
pre-owned business, and then to move into an OEM position of stature and hopefully sell a good number of OEM products. What's also happening, though, and I think Hal, we mentioned this a couple of casts ago, is that we're having a strong ethnic input, where these independents have been and have done very well in certain ethnic areas. So what they're looking for is they're looking for an ethnic area with an OEM so they can continue their sales pattern, their advertising, their social media, all of the things that have worked for them, and they want to continue it in a new market with an OEM. And the first thing they ask is what today's podcast is about. What should I paying for this store? What's the blue sky? And, I hear from all my other dealer friends that, it's decreasing and I'll be able to buy this store for, 25% less than I would able to 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Is any of that true?
Again, it just depends. I'm at 3 for 3 on it depends. That doesn't sound very insightful, but the challenge around the independents is, and buying the right demographics is really important.
Yes.
No question about it. But they need that, and I get and you do too, the benefits of the financial resources, wholesale and retail paper. It's a huge thing with the OEM flag versus the independent stores. But they're going to need that. They're going to need that qualified individual, a general manager or a dealer to partner with to get their foot in the door with
Right.
these very prescriptive
Right.
OEMs.
Yeah.
They're going to need to do that. That's going to be more important than where it is or what demographic or what ethnicity
Yeah.
is in that market.
Yeah.
Finding that right partner.
And we can help with the partners. That's part of what we do. We do marriages. And when we say marriages, I'm talking just as Hal said, you may be an independent, you may not have OEM experience. Well, you know what? We have an individual who does have OEM experience, who is looking at the same market, who may be looking at comparable dealerships, and we try to marry the two because a marriage of like that is usually a good marriage, especially if each other understands what the role of the individual is going to be. And as you said before, and I'll just get off this in a second, the ethnic marketplace is extremely important because a lot of these dealers, whether they're independents or not, it doesn't really matter. A lot of the dealers that are looking for additional OEMs have a formula that's worked for them in the past, as we started out the podcast with, whether it's ethnic or brand or price range, something has worked for them, which allows them to expand. So that's why they're now looking at similar areas. So if you're a potential dealer out there, or you are a dealer out there, and you do have an ethnic background, or you have an ethnic market that you've done very well with, those are the kind of guys we like to talk to because you're usually very, very strong in your ethnic area. You usually are willing to negotiate and maybe pay a little bit more than someone who's not familiar with that area, the ethnic background of that area, because you know what it could deliver for you. So we'll move on to another question in a second. To answer your question about is blue sky softening, the answer is it probably is softening a little bit, but not by market. We have to look at the individual markets, and that will determine. You could say certain markets, especially the Hispanic market, the blue sky is increasing because it's a very desirable market. It's a working market, a lot of money, good credit, and they want to continue that, whoever's going to buy the franchise. So this is a yes and no answer. We started that out, like you said before.
Yeah, this one last thing, I've mentioned it before. The irony in all this is that the independent is expert in selling used vehicles, which is where the new dealer makes the money, that and fixed operations. But yet to get the ticket through the front door and to get the flag, to get the franchise flag, and they've got to have new car new car experience. It's a bit of a funny situation and
Absolutely.
ironical.
Let's talk about moving this forward. There was a question about, again, next step after this. Again, we're talking about market areas right now. If we were to find an individual who wanted something a little off market and he wants to be a little risky, he wants to take advantage of an OEM opportunity that may be outside of his metro, a little bit further from his house, a little bit further from his existing franchises, and he's a little nervous. And I think you answered it before with the fact that we will marry people. We will get people together, and it's not unheard of. And don't be, a little bit taken back when we say, hey, listen, we'll bring in an operating partner for you. And that's really to get the deal done from a manufacturer standpoint, and maybe and this is the next question, maybe from a financial standpoint, in the sense that a lot of our dealers now are looking for money, a capital raise. They're looking for, whether it's Hal and I going to our banking friends. Oh yeah, and by the way, we're going to have a few of them on next week in our not call in. We're going to have as on film with us, on guest with us. We're going to have some banking people with him, so they may be able to answer some additional questions. But that's what they're looking for right now: is how and how much, and at what rate, and at what difficulty, and how long. I mean, there's a million questions that go along with how do I finance this dealer, and more importantly, am I going to be handicapped because I'm looking at an off market to enhance my existing dealer body? I have 6 stores. I'm venturing 50 miles or 100 miles outside of my realm. It's a little off market. Will I have the same financial institutions willing to lend me money or invest in me? What's the answer, Al? I don't know.
Yeah. No, you're back. Your marriage point is it really works well when both parties bring unique attributes and skills and experiences to the partnership. One's got money, but one's got the operating experience. So they both need each other, right? They they couldn't do it alone. So So that's what we're looking for when we try to put two two folks together, because that's the best catalyst for a successful partnership, is when both sides bring unique attributes and skills to the party.
I didn't mention before, but I'm going to bring it up now because in part of this question, question number 4, it says that the dealer asked a very quick question. He goes, can I just call my dealers that I know or dealers in my market area and see if they're willing to sell? And the answer is absolutely not.
Yeah, that
That's the kiss of death.
that I won't have to say it depends on that one. The answer is don't do that. Don't do that. Call us. We have a strategic buyer platform that we will put together. It's professional. It's targeted. Why bother with someone that is not going to meet your specific geography or size or capital investment profile? We will put together a targeted list. We will do the outreach for you. We will do valuations for the off-market dealer at no charge, and try to see if there's an intersection of interest anonymously, by the way, if you want us to, so that you can be in the shadow. We'll do the work, and the potential selling dealer will get a free evaluation, and you'll get the opportunity to look at the numbers and make a decision on whether you want to submit a letter of intent. That's the best way to go about off market.
Absolutely. And the difficulty that some of our dealer friends have is that dealer who is anticipating or even thinking about selling his dealership, he does not want to make that public. As you said before, Hal, in many of our other podcasts, by making that public, you erode your customer base. Question marks arise. More importantly, what do you think you do to your employees when it gets word that the boss that I've been working for 10 or 15 years is going to sell the franchise to some conglomerate or whatever? What do you think it does to those employees? And by the way, there is a time lag from the day that Hal and I submit the LOI to that dealer to the day that you turn the key on that new dealership. That may be months and months. What happens to those employees as they're sitting at their desk and it's gnawing at them, eating at them? The fact is, am I going to have a job? Am I going to? So that's one of the main reasons why I say don't cold call. Do not call dealers. They're not going to give you a straight answer. They're going to probably hang up on you, and they want nothing to do with outside people calling them. What Hal and I do, we set up NDAs, which are non-disclosure agreements, mutual non-disclosure agreements. We give the dealer a protective level saying that, hey, you can talk to us because the only way we're going to even mention any of this is to one of our clients who has signed an additional NDA is legally binding. So just don't do it, guys. It's just not worth it. We'll do it for you. And we'll just move on. Okay, next question, Hal. This is a good one. What are the red flags? And I think you addressed a couple of them already. What are the red flags that you're going to have in an OEM approval process that will, number one, either be positive or negative? And how are they going to affect me as the purchasing dealer who may have OEM experience? But how is that going to affect me? And what's going to affect us?
The clear answer for me is a lack of operational capacity. That's the one. I mean, you could have all the money in the world, and if you don't have that operator, or you don't have that personal resume for not independent stores but franchise stores, either in a general manager position or an ownership position, and they want the general manager because the general manager oversees new, used, parts, service, rental, F&I, body shop, whatever profit centers there are. And they want not just that experience, that resume, they want specific successful performance metrics associated with those positions. So it's the number one deal killer when it gets to the OEM. It doesn't get to the OEM if I'm working the deal, because I'll know it gets turned back. And so what I'll do, and Greg will do this too, we'll find a person, a partner that can get you through the OEM approval, because they'll have the successful track record that the OEM will require.
Right. And again, we talked about that, I think, last week when we talked about acquiring a franchise. That's a big one. So let's jump ahead. There's a lot of questions here. We have a whole bunch of questions we have to start answering a little bit more. We're going to skip over the loan package, because I think we talked about that, and we'll have to get into that a little bit more. But the biggest problem with that was one word, Hal, and you said it perfectly, is overprojecting. Overprojecting, putting in numbers that are not accurate, not full, not credible. And that is the number one thing that turns off a loan officer and will turn off the OEM. If they see a package that these numbers are just not realistic, you know what they do? They put it on the side and say, hey, thank you very much. And Hal and I continue to call the OEM with no success, because
Yeah, and the other thing that does is it 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 overblows your working capital requirement. Even if it gets through the OEM, if you if you say you're going to sell 1,000 used cars and the number should be 500, your working capital guide, your minimum working capital guide is going to go way off the top because your floor plan limits are going to be higher. And now you're going to go back into your pocket for more capital that you didn't really need to have in the first place because you overshot the forecast. So it's best to be conservative with a little, with a little push, and then you get in, and then if you overperform, no one's going to be no one's going to be mad at that,
that's
right?
for sure.
Including your banker.
Yeah, your banker's going to be lining up to do deal number 2 with you. Okay,
Yeah,
this to me is one of the most important questions that we're going to have today. Should I include my real estate in with
yeah,
the purchase price of the store? Keep it, lease it to the new dealer, or sell it outright when I sell the franchise?
yeah. I mean, this is a very personal question. Depending on your strategy, do you want mailbox money every month, or do you want instant liquidity with a big payday, but then you got a big tax bill, right? So you got to sit down with your wealth advisor, your CPA, and you got to look at your portfolio and your investment goals, and that should drive a more clearer decision on whether you sell it or you lease it.
Yeah. So I only have 2 points on this one, Al. I think you know both of them, what I'm going to say. Number one, the family trust. A lot of these dealers say, okay, I'm taking the X number of millions of dollars for the franchise that Joe Smith is giving me, and that I'm going to live on for the rest of my life. But
Yeah.
I want to take care of the kids in the family trust. So that's why I want that monthly rent check or a lease check coming to them, put it in the trust, and my kids could benefit from them. That's number one, and totally valid. Absolutely a valid reason. Number two is that the dealer is concerned about his kids in the sense that they may not be able to manage a windfall profit or a windfall purchase that he's going to have with millions of dollars. So he doesn't want to actually disperse the millions, as you said before, it's a payday, to the kids and family and everything else. He may put the full amount into the family trust anyway and break it down monthly. But a lot of dealers seem to feel more comfortable leasing. I'm against leasing. I think if I'm advocating buying a franchise, I want the real estate. Banks want the real estate. Bankers want the real estate. It's an appreciating value. So I'm a little against the lease concept. But I'll ask you this. What are your thoughts on a lease with an option to buy?
Well, I encourage my sellers to you want to put the deal in front of the biggest number of buyers, right? The largest audience. And you do that by saying you can buy it for this or you can lease it. And then you just as the deals come in, then you're able to decide which way you really want to go. And leasing purchase agreements, lease for 5 years with an option to buy it is maybe the best of both worlds. You get the mailbox money and then you get the payday 5 years down the road. And you separate you separate the real estate proceeds from the business proceeds in terms of taxes, right? You can offer right of first refusals, right? Down the road. That's it kind of taints the property a little bit because if I'm interested in buying it, but there's a right of first refusal from someone else, then I don't know. I don't really control my own destiny in the deal. So you got to be careful with the right of first
Yeah.
refusals or right of first offers. We can help you. We can help you guide you through the best the best of all of those combinations.
Right. We got about 5 minutes left. Good show. And I think we could finish off these few questions in the next few minutes,
Okay.
and then move on to our guest speakers next week.
Okay.
One of the questions is working capital. Well, I just, let me back up for half a second about the lease versus the buy. Don't forget that if you're buying that purchase, that real estate, in addition to buying the franchise, you're going to have to come up with a substantial amount of money for the bank as a down payment on the mortgage and or whatever you want to call it, how you arrange that. So with the lease, you have really no money out of pocket to lease the property. With a buy, you're going to have to take out what, how 20, 25%, maybe more on a mortgage?
Depends, yeah. If the real estate is if the real estate's more than 51%, then you can do combination loans and sometimes get, longer amortization, and lower down payments.
Right.
Just depends on who your lender is, and we'll get into that when we talk about
Absolutely.
that next week. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Now, two last questions. We got just enough time for it. This is a good one. This came up a few times. When we approach a dealer to sell his franchise, sometimes the question is, I may want to sell it because I don't think the kids could handle running this. Even though they've been in the business for 10 years with me, I don't think they could handle it. So I'm going to cash out. What are you finding nowadays in today's environment, the post-COVID, the children of the family? I tell you, my students are COVID babies, and we can go into another class, a whole nother subject on that class situation. But I could see where a dealer is concerned about the post-COVID babies who are on taking over a big responsibility of running a multi-million-dollar franchise. Your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I think you have to qualify your kids like you qualify anyone else. Put them in put them in the store, put them in different departments in the store because they're going to one day be in your chair,
Right.
and see how they do. And make sure that they want to be there. Okay? Cuz
That's
I
the
see a lot
question.
of,
Yeah.
there's a lot of pressure. you know, I sold a store last year. The guy had been in the store since he was 13. He was 43 years old. I said, "Why are you getting out? You're making $1 million a year and you're 43." He goes, "Yeah, but I've been in here 30 years. I want to do something different." Right? So he didn't pick the store. The store picked him
Right.
because grandfather had it, dad had it. Dad's passed away now. Easier for him to say, now I can leave.
Yeah, and how I mentioned this last week with my students. A number of them are children of existing dealerships,
Yeah.
OEMs,
Yeah.
and they're concerned. They don't necessarily want to run these stores. Not that they don't have the knowledge. I mean, they're in college. They're pretty smart kids. They don't know if they want that pressure. It's a completely different environment today than we grew up with, or my kids
Yeah.
grew up with.
Yeah, it is, and it's heavy. It's a heavy burden at night. You go home, you got 20, 30, 40, 50 people that are counting on you
Yep.
to provide a good lives for their families, and so it's a serious commitment, serious responsibility.
Yeah, I think we got through most of the questions today. Let's do our
Okay.
shameless plug
Yeah.
and get everyone to go to www.dealerconfidentialpodcast.com,
Yeah.
log in. You get Hal's wonderful white paper. By the way, it's spectacular this month, if I must say so myself, because I'm quoted in it. And let's get you guys signed up for not only Hal's white paper, but for our newsletters. And more importantly, we want you as a client. Whether it's on the buy side or sell side, we want you as one of our clients. Spring is crazy in the car business, as you know. Dealers, after they're paying their taxes next month or this month, they're finalizing their taxes and everything else for 2025. A lot of them have already told us that we're looking to sell. And a lot of my guys, obviously, I always have buyers, as Hal mentioned before. So I think it's a great time. So when you sign in, again, dealerconfidentialpodcast.com, tell us what your thoughts are. Hey, I'm a dealer. I want to sell. Hey, I'm a buyer. I want to buy. Let us
Yeah.
know, and we'll really start taking notes and jump on the call with you, both of us.
Yeah, and we appreciate you being on the podcast with us too.
Yeah,
And thank you for the questions. And thank you for listening. We're having a lot of fun. We're hoping that you enjoy these and you get one or two nuggets out of each one of these
yeah.
that you can apply in your own business.
Well, as we said before, how we're reaching over 2 million automotive specialists every podcast. We're sending it out to that. And it's been great. Really, the response has been great. The questions have been great. Log in,
Yeah.
join the family.
Right.
Thanks, Hal.
All right, Greg. See you next time.
See you soon.
Bye bye.